The President of the United States, the Vice President, cabinet members, the House Speaker, and hundreds of journalists, all in one room at one hotel on one night. And what's supposed to be Washington's most glamorous tradition turns into a crime scene. On April 25, 2026, the White House Correspondents Dinner at the Washington Hilton became the site of one of the most shocking security incidents in modern American history. This year's dinner was already historic. It was the first time Donald Trump, now in his second term, had ever attended as a sitting president, showing up with Melania on his arm, ready for a night Washington had anticipated for months. By 8:30 p.m., the ballroom was packed, guests were picking at their burrata salads, glasses were clinking, and Trump was laughing with the evening's entertainer, a mentalist named Oz Perlman, when just outside the ballroom, at the upper-level security checkpoint, a man sprinted through the barrier armed with a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives, opening fire and exchanging shots with Secret Service agents who immediately gave chase, tackling and subduing him within seconds before he could reach the ballroom below. But inside that room, those seconds were pure terror. Sharp cracking sounds rang out from just beyond the doors, the loud hum of hundreds of conversations went instantly silent, armed law enforcement flooded through every entrance, shouts of "get down" swept the room, and guests, senators, journalists, foreign dignitaries, dove beneath tables and chairs. While the head table was cleared in an instant, Vice President J.D. Vance was pulled away from the stage, and President Trump himself was evacuated, briefly stumbling in the chaos before being rushed with Melania to a secure room in the hotel basement. Cabinet members scattered across the ballroom were hunted by their own security details, agents mounting chairs, calling out names, plucking officials from the panicked crowd one by one because the entire line of presidential succession was in that building. And from somewhere in the stunned, silent ballroom, one voice cut through: "God bless America." Among those who came terrifyingly close to the gunman was CNN anchor Wolf Blitzer, who had stepped out just before the main course, found himself feet away from the shooter in the hallway, was thrown to the ground and shielded by a police officer, sheltered in a restroom with more than a dozen others, and later described the gunshots as so loud, so frightening, he even lost a shoe in the panic, a small detail that somehow captures the raw, unscripted terror of that moment better than almost anything else. Law enforcement identified the suspect as Cole Thomas Allen, a 31-year-old from Torrance, California, whose background makes this story even more unsettling. He was a teacher at a private tutoring company that had named him Teacher of the Month in December 2024, a Caltech graduate with degrees in mechanical engineering and computer science, a man once featured in local news for designing an emergency wheelchair brake, a published indie game developer whose non-violent puzzle game on Steam was called Boredom, and whose next project he had named First Law. No criminal record, not previously on any law enforcement radar, a registered hotel guest who had legally checked in and walked in armed to the teeth. The U.S. Acting Attorney General stated Sunday that law enforcement believes Allen was specifically targeting Trump administration officials and had traveled from Los Angeles to Washington by train ahead of the attack. And he now faces charges including assault on a federal officer and multiple firearms counts, though the motive remains officially unconfirmed. One Secret Service agent was shot in the chest during the exchange of fire, saved by his bulletproof vest, taken to a local hospital, and released the same night. That agent ran toward a man with a shotgun, a handgun, and knives, charging toward a room containing the President of the United States. And because of him, no other injuries were reported among the hundreds of guests inside. Roughly an hour after the shooting, Trump stood at the podium in the James Brady briefing room, still in his tuxedo, called the suspect a lone wolf whack job, praised the Secret Service, noted that the chaos had done something rare by unifying a room full of political adversaries in shared fear and relief, and spoke about Melania, who hadn't been present during his previous 2 assassination attempts, but was right there on stage beside him this time, saying, "She's told me saying numerous times, "You are in a dangerous job," but that goes along with her, too. The room where he spoke carries its own heavy history, named for James Brady, Ronald Reagan's press secretary, who was shot and permanently disabled in an assassination attempt outside this very same hotel in 1981, making the Washington Hilton now the backdrop for two of the most terrifying moments in modern presidential security history. This is the third time in Trump's political career that someone has attempted to kill him or those around him, and each time it raises harder questions about presidential security, about political violence, and about what is fracturing so deeply in American society that ordinary people with no criminal past are reaching for weapons. Questions that are not going away, an investigation that is only just beginning, and a story that America desperately doesn't want to keep writing.